Implementation and institutionalization involves processes to ensure that at every stage, various strategies can be effectively carried out smoothly. This means the process involved is the viewpoint of an individual. Then, when an organization starts to initiate any process, it first starts with the implementation phase, and then as the process is adopted at the organization level, it can be implemented across organizations. Let's define implementation a little further. Implementation is where the necessary processes are taken to ensure that the product can be applied to the actual setting. We will look into a company's strategy for the implementation of a new technology to extend their new management system. During this phase, a strong leadership will be required to support this launch and set goals to ensure that the implementation can be institutionalized over multiple years as it prepares the design and rollout of a new system. Michael Fullen, a prominent researcher in this area, defines implementation as the actual use of an innovation in practice. Further, he calls the implementation perspective both the content and process of dealing with ideas, programs, activities, structures, and policies that are new to the people involved. Institutionalization is the acceptance or confirmation of an innovation when it is used on a daily basis. Institutionalization is the output of implementing that process again and again. The difference between implementation and institutionalization is in the implementation process, the person helps to initiate the innovation. Institutionalization is when that same person who helped with the implementation leaves, the innovation continues to be utilized. The culture has changed to accept the innovation. So now let's look at our case study. Orlib Energy is amongst the top integrated oil and gas companies that supplies a range of various types of fuel used for transportation and energy. Its production activities are spread in 30 countries. In the last 7 years, the company has supported many new initiatives, which has led to implementing new services, new management systems, as well as new technologies. Due to the acquiring of new assets and partnerships in the company, there has been confusion about how systems coexist. Due to numerous standards and procedures of how work should be handled, the company feels its best interest is in developing a single, cohesive management system which can be used amongst all groups. But the real problem lies when the operational activities of the company and the organization culture that has developed. Due to the various initiatives to reform current practices, employees tend to look at this as just another initiative or it's a quick fix to deal with the current situation. There is a realization that inconsistencies due to a lack of a unified system have begun to deteriorate the discipline levels of its people. The following video shows us how cultures in the past are affected by technologies, and some of these traits hold true today.
Every culture on the planet Earth is always changing, sometimes rapidly and sometimes very slowly. The primitive native quickly adopts many of the advanced culture's tools, whose value is readily apparent to him. Another way in which cultures change is through invention and discovery. Every technological development brings about a greater or lesser change in the culture pattern. It can well be imagined what an infinite number of culture traits are bound up with a primary invention such as the wheel, and with a primary discovery like the use of fire. Such primary inventions and discoveries have made possible the immensely complicated developments of a technological age. But the inhabitants of planet Earth do not always welcome culture changes. There is often a resistance to anything different from the habits of the past.
Julie, when I was a girl, we wouldn't have been caught dead with no more clothes on than that. My stars, what are our young people coming to these days?
Oh, Granny, everybody dresses like this.
Well, I don't approve of it.
But even though material culture traits change more easily than non-material, change of any kind is often opposed by vested interests.
We just can't do it, Jim. We've got too much tied up in present equipment.
I've seen it work. It turns out those stampings twice as fast. I'm telling you, if they install those machines, it'll put half of us out of work within the year.
In view of my 20 years of work in this area, I am convinced that this proposal would be extremely expensive and very uncertain of success. It can contribute nothing but confusion in an area already very much disturbed.
In spite of such opposition, cultures are always changing. New ways of doing and of thinking gradually take hold. This is one of the most basic factors in every culture, since without it, the culture would die out. Thus, the individual himself is shaped by his culture, just as he helps to shape it. A culture which demands too rigid conformity tends to stifle individual initiative.
Very uncertain of success.
To break this cycle of what has become a cultural norm, the company will need to take several steps to ensure that successful implementation and institutionalization can take place. First, gap analysis. Second, tailored communications. Third, engagement of their leaders. 4, install a documentation management system. 5, create manual. 6, have orientations and training sessions. 7, build an internal support capability. And 8, take a holistic approach to anything that's being implemented. The implementation of new systems and processes should include an expert in this type of change, an ORLA representative or champion. This will allow for consistency